What's prayer? Us dressing down, coffee, tea, early morning, easy chair, looking east, lovingly, so that God can see in your eyes, the loving gaze in your eyes, the beauty of who God is. Perfect contemplation. Simple. No thoughts, just you as a human being on behalf of all humanity. Just looking at God and saying, "Yes, you're beautiful." It's a whole tradition that says God is like a love-sick person that waits just for one human being to look out of the corner of that person's heart and say, "Sweetie, I love you." And then the tradition says God goes back and can rest for a while until God has got too much self-confidence, keeps forgetting, and then goes and finds another human being and keeps clearing her throat, just so that that human being can look at God and say, "Don't worry, darling. Don't worry, my sweet. Of course, I see you, I remember you, I love you." God is desperate for your love. God can't be God without you. So take a deep breath or two. From your heart, give God a wink. Reassure God you know she's around, you love her. And gently return to the room. So as Rose was saying, I belong to Newcastle Hermitage, and we have a tradition that if you are solemnly professed monk, you've got to be there for 5 years, you've got to have taken vows for life, you can go to the prior superior and you can request 2 weeks solitude each year. And when you go for the 2 weeks solitude, you stay in yourself, each guy's got his own cell. And don't forget, prisons got the word cell from monasteries, not the other way around. Our cells are not quite as austere as they sound. You've got a little bedroom, a little kitchenette, a toilet, a chapel, a workroom, and a garden. That's not bad. But you stay in yourself for the two weeks. And it's, for me, I always request it. It's wonderful because despite what you may think, monastic life of its essence is boring. It's got to be boring. It's the same thing every day. Perhaps a change on a Sunday and a feast day, but of its nature it's boring so that the monk can settle into a deeper place because the routine keeps going. It's the same every day. Now, if you take your 2 week solitude, no routine. So it's just wonderful, that space, that freedom. So I always ask. So a few years ago, I said to the prior, "Could I have my solitude?" He said, "Absolutely." And there was a monk that lived a little bit away from the rest of the community in a cell, and he died. And so I looked after that cell in the forest. And I said to the boss, "Could I do my 2 weeks in that cell?" He said, "If you want, there's no electricity there, and there's no running water. If you want to do that, fine. But it's so beautiful out there." So I said, "Oh, absolutely." So he set the date. The day before, I packed my backpack with the basics. And the tradition is you're not seen by the rest of the community during the 2 weeks. So when they're at prayer, then you go out, come back to the place and get some provisions and then go back to your cell. When they're at prayer, you do some walking, etc. So I got my backpack. Of course, thank God we're an Italian community. So the first thing I put in my backpack was a bottle of wine. You've got to get your priorities right. And then some milk and some bread and some cheese. And off I went. And cleaned the place, which I'd done a little bit before, made my bed and settled in. And that evening, just knowing I didn't have to go to bed early because I could get up whenever I wanted. So I had a little glass of wine, watched the evening come, sat down, had something to eat, and then went to sleep. The bell goes at 5:15 in the morning, and when I heard the bell across the valley, I just turned over, readjusted my pillow, and thought, those poor bastards. And then went back to sleep, and so slept until about 7 or whatever. And then woke up, first morning of 2 weeks solitude, fantastic. I got the shock of my life. As I'm lying in my bed on this first morning, open my eyes, watching the dawn come, there sitting at the end of my bed, Sunday afternoon. The gap, the egg. So I thought, now that's strange. She doesn't usually come to solitude time. And the rule is, with solitude, always accept whatever is there. So no fighting. So I sort of tried to be polite to her, said hello, and got up and did the routine. So there's a routine. So that get up, have some breakfast, make tea, coffee, do a little bit of what I was saying, sitting in a chair, looking at nature and creation, looking lovingly at God, did some journaling, and then wrote a little bit, and some manual labor, made lunch, looked at the time. When the monks were at Mass, went for a walk, and I couldn't shake her. She was there the whole time. So in the afternoon, some more manual labor, a little siesta, and then a bit of quiet time, still there. Next day, still there. Next day, still there. Next day, still there. And you're in a small little hermitage, and she's big. The gap gets bigger and bigger. So with about 9 days of the 14 days of her there every day, I felt, this is not working. And I don't think it's all that healthy. So I decided if she was still there on the 10th day, that's tomorrow, I would go to the prior and say, that's it, I'll come back early to community. Because I could just feel it was too much work dealing with this. It just got bigger and bigger. She didn't go away. So next morning I woke up, there she was. And I thought, well, that's it. She wins. So I began cleaning up the hermitage, packing everything away, and I decided I would meet the prior as he's coming out of evening prayer, Vespers that evening, and say, okay, I'll be back in community tomorrow morning. So I was sad. Sad because I'd been so looking forward to the 2 weeks of solitude. Sad that I wasn't able to really and truly make friends with the gap. She just sat there. And the whole thing had sort of failed in a way. So I packed up, and 5:30, it was November-ish, these beautiful winter evenings in Big Sur. And I'm walking along with my tail between my legs and my ears down, feeling very sorry for myself. And as I'm walking down, the sun is just beginning to set behind me into the sea. You know that red sun of November. And I'm walking along. Tomorrow morning I've got to get up. It's the end. All of a sudden, I've noticed one leaf of a bay tree is shimmering. And I look behind. And as the sun is setting down there into the sea, one ray of the sun has been able to find its way through myriads of forests and trees and all sorts of obstacles. One ray from the setting sun has come all the way along and hit one leaf in this page. And I stopped because the leaf was green one minute, it was red another, and gold another. And I stopped. That is so beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just to see this, talk about, this wasn't a burning bush, it was a burning leaf. So I said, and I'm just looking at this, it was alive. Gold one minute, red, then green, gold, red, red, and now shimmering. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now stop. Forget the gold. The grief wasn't there. So I'm looking at this leaf, and I'm realizing, you can feel when the sadness is there when it's not there. It's not there. And I think, do you know that I've been 10 days now in that little hermitage? And during those 10 days, I was stopped over and over again. I was apprehended. I was shocked. I was intersected by beauty over and over again, just like that leaf. And I remember saying, thank you, that is beautiful, thank you. And at that moment, definitely, if I'd been aware, the gap had stopped. But what did I do? I chose to go back again to the pain. So there and then, looking at this burning leaf, I turned around, all the way back to the hermitage, unpacked, sat down on the chair, and looked out over the Pacific, and I said, so now what happens? What happens when beauty steps in front of me? Because it happened there, it's happened all these days, and why didn't I capture it? So right outside the window is this gigantic redwood. So I sat there looking at the redwood. As I looked at beauty before, I looked at the redwood, I looked at the mist coming in, I looked at the glass of wine flickering in the candlelight, I looked at the steam coming out of the cup of tea, I looked at the hummingbird, I felt the sun on my face, so I knew there was beauty. So I just stood and looked at this redwood. And I realized when you look at something beautiful, everything else falls aside. And it's just the redwood and me. And then it's almost as if my body expands so as to take the redwood in. It's almost as if the redwood walks towards me, and I walk towards the redwood, and the two of us become one, and my body, in order to take it in, my whole body expands to take the redwood in. And with that expansion, as the two of us become one, everything else falls away. There is like a deep primal, that is beautiful. And out of that primal breath comes a smile, a deep smile. And out of the smile, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I then realized that I had been seeing beauty. I had been going through that dynamic of stopping, seeing, everything falling aside, the beauty, the moment of beauty in myself, becoming one, expanding to take it in, the primal breath, the smile, the thank you, over and over again. But I chose to return to sadness. So I just want to read a little poem to you here. Again, you've got a copy. This is by Mary Oliver, who picks up, she's an expert in this, by the way, what we've just spoken about now. She's the expert. She is really the expert in looking at being stopped by beauty. It doesn't have to be the blue iris.
It could be weeds in a vacant lot, or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try and make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but a doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot, or just a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try and make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but a doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. Do you remember either reading the book or seeing the film Beautiful Mind? It's a true story of John Nash, perhaps one of the greatest minds in America. He was head of the physics department in Harvard, just this brilliant man, and at the peak of his career, head of the department, he developed schizophrenia. And it manifested itself with two figments of his imagination, a man and a woman, who plagued him. And it got so bad that he couldn't manage his position anymore, and he had to resign. And out of respect for this brilliant man struggling so badly with this, they gave him a tiny little office in the same department, and he was a junior coach for first-year students. So every morning, John Nash, this amazing professor, would come, dressed up, same way, what do you call it, briefcase. He'd come to work, and he had this little cubicle, and then first-year students, and he'd try and teach them. Anyway, one day, the new head of the department was surveying his domain, the third floor of this really posh new building, looking out over the campus, and looking out. And there he sees, as he's looking out over the campus, it's summer, all the kids lying on the grass, and there's the walkways and the fountain, and he sees John Nash coming along with his briefcase through the campus. And John gets to the fountain, and then suddenly starts running around in a circle around the fountain, shouting, "No, no, no, no." Of course, the kids are laughing. This older gentleman, professor, making a fool of himself. So when John gets up to the third floor, the head of the department says, "John, can I see you for a moment?" He says, "Yes, yes." He said, "John, this isn't working." "What do you mean it's not?" He said, we wanted to keep you, but this is not. "But why?" He said, "I happened to see what went on down there, and we can't have that going on." And then John said, No, don't you understand? This was the first time I recognized them as not me. The figments of his imagination. No, don't you realize this is the first time I recognize them as not me? And that was the turning point. That was the breaking point for John, because he realized that man and woman he had in his head were not him. And from that, he began to pull himself up into he. So the guy said, "Okay, would you like to go to lunch?" And John said, "Sure." And so they're walking off to lunch, and out of the corner of his eye, John sees on this low wall the guy and the girl. And he says to the new boss, "Excuse me, can you see anybody sitting on that wall?" He says, "No." John said, "I thought so." And he begins this whole journey by recognizing that they are not him. Now, this might be a little bit shocking to you, But every one of us in this room, married, single, widowed, religious, priest, no matter what your background is, every one of us in this room has been and is having an affair. And like John, our affair is with a guy and a girl. And the girl's name is the past. And the guy's name is the future. And every one of us in this room, our whole life is caught up with this illicit affair. Well, you may be married, but you've still got a guy and a girl in your life, the past and the future, who stop you ever being present to this moment. And we won't be healed. We won't get to the bottom of managing the gap until, like John Nash, we realize they are not me. They are not me. Our life is so full of anxiety on this morning, so full of busyness, and so full of stress because of the affair. Because of the woman of the past, the guy of the future, pulling us non-stop away from who we are. So a poem by Rumi. So we're back again into the Sufi tradition by Rumi. If you put your soul against this oar with me in a boat, if you put your soul against this oar with me, the power that made the universe will enter your sinew from a source not outside your limbs, but from a holy realm that lives in us. Exuberant is existence. Time, a husk. Exuberant is existence. Time, a husk. When the moment cracks open, ecstasy leaps out and devours space. When the moment cracks open, ecstasy leaps out and devours space. Love goes mad with blessings, like my words give. Why lay yourself on the torturer's rack of past and future? That's us. Why lay yourself on the torturer's rack of past and future? The mind that tries to shape tomorrow beyond its capacities will find no rest. Be kind to yourself. Dear to our innocent follies. Forget any sounds or touch you knew that did not help you dance. And you will come to see that all involves us. You will come to see that all involves us. So here we get Rumi inviting us to really have a look and see what is it that is pulling us away from who we are, pulling us away from this moment, the sacred moment. How can we begin to recognize this affair that's going on constantly in our life with the past and the future? The last 4 days in that hermitage were bliss. I kept looking for beauty. I kept stopping each time, no matter how ordinary it was. I kept stopping and doing everything with attention and with care. And the whole atmosphere of the last 4 days changed completely. I tried to do everything with attention, with care, with gentleness. And the word that emerged for me, I tried to do everything with quality. It's not a word we use so much anymore. Quality. So whether it was making my bed, I made my bed with real care and quality. Whether it was washing the dishes, I watched the little rainbows in each bubble of the suns. They're there. Whether it was pouring tea and boiling water into tea, watching the steam rise. Preparing a sandwich, I did it slowly. Everything with care, gently, attention, quality, quietly. And so those 4 last days were magic. But, like all of you know, is that you go on a retreat and then you go back to reality. James was talking about it, Rose was talking about it, and within 2 or 3 days, it's gone. Why is gone and the monastery is gone, and you're back in the SH1T of life. So my big worry was, how can I keep the 4 days and the quality of those 4 days back in the hermitage? So, 4 days I went back. And I realized that another form of schizophrenia that had been happening to me in the years I'd been at the hermitage is that there'd been an unwritten law in the community. There was nothing there in the documents, but it was a law that I heard, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly. And the law was the monk, the real monk, the good monk, the true monk, the holy monk, was the monk who spent a significant amount of time of his day in his cell, meditating and reading scripture. My problem was I could never ever get to my cell to do it. Whether it was my personality, or whether it was the jobs I got, I spent every day for years charging through the day in order to get to my cell and be a good monk in a time to read scripture and meditate. However, by the time I got to my cell, after spending the whole day running, I was in such a bad mood, and there were other bastards who could do it, but I couldn't read scripture or meditate anyway. So a little voice said to me after this experience, after the 4 days, Michael, no going back. No going back to your liberty. No rushing to get back. You are invited now to step forward. Just that. And so I began then, back in the community, I began to look for beauty in every moment that was coming to me. So no longer going back, but stepping forward and looking for scripture, no longer trying to do scripture in myself, looking for scripture, looking for beauty in every moment that was coming to me. No going back, but stepping forward. Stepping forward into a meeting. You think you've got still meetings at monasteries, non-stop. A meeting, doing the laundry for the community, cooking in the kitchen, seeing somebody in the parlour, whatever the job was, no matter how mundane, no matter how ordinary, no matter how boring, no matter how difficult, but realizing if I go and look into that moment with quality, beauty is there. And beauty is another name for God. So the whole shift for me was no longer coming back to be a good monk and to read scripture and to do meditation, but rather to step forward and to say, where is she hiding now? What disguise is the divine using now, even at a meeting, or doing the laundry, or cooking a meal? She's there. She must be there. So that apocryphal Gospel of Thomas says, cleave the wood, cut the wood, and I am there. Lift the stone, and you'll find me. Cleave the wood, I am there. Lift the stone, and you'll find me. So I began to lift the stone of every minute, of every moment, and looking for the way the divine was present there. And she's there. The divine is present everywhere. And the minute we begin to do that, the minute we begin to look for beauty, her other name, in everything, look for the presence in everything, see everything as the potential of an epiphany. What's the epiphany? Epiphany is the revelation of God. Everything, even a meeting, she's there. So you start looking for her in everything. Something begins to change. Cut the wood, I am there. Lift the stone, you'll find me. Something began to shift in my life that was not there before. I found that whereas before I was rushing through my whole day to get back to my cell in order to be a good monk, now with this new approach of looking, where the hell is she hiding now? Remember we spoke about Gaius and Ludens, the game? This is the game the divine wants to play with us. She is constantly using disguises. So the whole game comes, can I find where the divine is hiding now in each moment? And that ability to look for her in everything, we begin to see her. Not only that, something begins to happen called synchronicity or serendipity, or the old word grace begins to work. And you will begin, if you can do this, to do everything with care and quality and attention. You can begin to do this. I know this sounds very new agey, but you'll begin to hear a voice inside you telling you what you should do. And the voice is the divine. And a whole new game begins to emerge between you and the voice giving you suggestions on how you should do your day. And the problem comes with whether you are prepared to believe in the voice or not. So I would start off, Heritage is quite a big area, and so as to be efficient, I started with a list of things that I had to do on that day. And I'd say, well, if I start off here, I can do that and that and that, and then go there, and then see him, and then do that. And the voice would say, Michael, I wouldn't do it that way. I would start there. And I said, that doesn't make sense to do it, to start over there, because I've got... So then she says, you don't want to do it, no, it's fine, you don't want to do it, but if you'd like to start there, I'll show you things to help. She's big. So you're going to fight her, you're going to be stopped. So I give up, and I start there. In the middle, it doesn't make sense. So I go there, and I go and do what I've got. As I'm walking out of the door, there's a monk that says, it's much further down the list, oh, Michael, you know that meeting that we had further down? I think I can handle it, don't worry. And I'm just finished with him, and another monk across the cloister garden says, Michael, if you're free now, I can see you. So I say to her, what do you think? Of course, go. So off. You go to and when you finish this, as I'm turning the corner, there is the other person I had to see. So my whole list was done in a quarter of the time that it would normally have taken me, only because I was listening to her. And that's not once, that's become my whole way of life now. And that's why I was insistent on this idea of new days. The playing God. My spirituality has now become, we don't always agree, she and I. And every time I go against her, I end up losing. But it's this idea that I keep reminding her it's 2,000 years before, since she was in a human body, and sometimes she forgets logistics. Every time, by giving to her, is a magic. What is that magic? You think, New Age, what is that? No. Do you remember when you were a little girl or a little boy and your mom and dad took you to the fair? I presume you had the circus or the fair, and you would have those dodgem cars. Did you have dodgem cars? Bumper cars? Bumper cars? Remember? And so, as little girls here, you would be very, very apprehensive. And your folks would say, come on, have a little, and you get into this little car, and you go swimming around. There'd always be a little bastard, a boy, of course, who would take absolute joy in frightening the girls and bumping them. Remember those days?
Yeah.
Well, now, who is the bastard little boy today in the bumper car arena? Humanity. The whole of nature and creation, the whole of the universe, the cosmos is all in an order. Even though it has little shakes and wobbles, there's an order everywhere. There's an order of day and night, of seasons. There's an order of the moon, of tides. There's an order of everything. The only part of creation that has the freedom to become one with the order or not, the little bastard in the bumper car, humanity. So this is our choice. If we can go with the order that's in us, it's the presence within us. It's the divine that's in here. It's the mystery in each one. If we can begin to listen to that voice, if we can trust the voice, if we can begin to follow the voice, if we can stay in the present moment, because it's only in the present moment that you can hear the voice. If you get involved with that affair, you go schizophrenic with the past or the future, you can't hear the voice. The voice is only detected in the present moment. Because the divine is only present. So what did beauty do? What did that redwood do? What were all those moments of beauty where you confronted over and over again, every day by beauty? What does beauty do? Beauty by its very definition plunges. Beauty plunges us into now. That's the gift of art. That's the gift of music. That's the gift of any type of beauty. The minute you apprehend, see beauty, you are immediately plunged into now. And it's in now only you can meet the divine. Nowhere else. In the past, she's not there. She doesn't live in the past. Leave the past behind, the scripture says so beautifully at Lent. She's not in the future. She doesn't believe, because she can only be now. And yet, as human beings, we're anywhere but. And the minute you get into that rhythm that's in the universe, look at the full moon last night and this morning. The minute you can not spend half the night up looking at one channel after another, wasting your time, but trying to go to bed with that rhythm, getting up with that rhythm. The minute you can make time to really sleep 6 to 8 hours, to stop for a siesta, to have a vacation regularly, to stop on a Sunday, to switch off the bloody iPhone. The minute you can find this rhythm, you will hear the voice. Very gentle, because there's going to be other voices pulling. The pastor's a pretty big voice. Pass from our folks, never good enough. Michael, got to be the good little voice and everybody will love you. Big strong voice for all of us. Voice of our mother and our father. And the future, always that fear, that anxiety. Will I succeed in this culture? Will I be able to get to the top? Will I? We see it in our kids. We see it everywhere. We see it in ourselves. Am I driving the right car? This voice is very strong. But the voice of mystery, the voice of God, the voice of the divine in us, can only be heard now. And it's this voice that will take you through all the complexities that you've got as in partnership, in relationship, in marriage, with your children, with financial difficulties, with emotional difficulties, litany. Doesn't matter. Inside you is the gap and the presence. And the gap with her ache and her pain was calling me. Those 10 days when I didn't see it, was calling me, no Michael, no past, no future, stay in the now, through beauty, and I will lead you. But I wouldn't listen. I saw the beauty, I was stopped by the beauty, but went back to the past and the future. It seems so obvious, you've heard it 100 times before, but this, for me, is what contemplative life is about. This, for me, is what the spiritual life is about. Very simple. Realizing the gap and not silencing it. Not getting caught in the past or the future, staying in the now, trusting that inner voice, and doing everything with quality, with care, with love, with gentleness, with presence. And things change. The ordinary becomes sacred. The very ordinary becomes sacred. And things that we rush through, trying to finish in order to do meditation, in order, those very things become where the divine speaks to us. A little poem by Wilkie, and then we'll start. Well, a little poem and then a reading. But I just want you to. This is a poem by Wilkie. Only in our doing can we grasp you. Wilkie talking to God. Only in our doing can we grasp you. Only with our hands can we illumine you. Art. I grow strong with the beauty I behold. Artists grow God. Only with our hands can we illuminate you. The mind is but a visitor. It thinks us out of our world. Isn't that it? It's the bloody mind that keeps stopping us up. The mind is but a visitor. It thinks us out of our world. Each mind fabricates itself. We sense its limits, for we have made them, and just when we would free them, you come and make of yourself and of. So beyond the limits of the mind, there she is, the divine, the presence, the beauty. I don't want to think a place for you. Speak to me from everywhere. This is him talking to God. Speak to me from everywhere. Laundry. Your gospel can be comprehended without looking at its source. You haven't got to read them. Yes, reading the gospel is wonderful. But every moment is gospel. If we got out, if we are awake. Speak to me from everywhere. Your gospel can be comprehended without looking for its source. When I go towards you, it is with my whole life. And there's a contemplative. What's a contemplative? Is a woman or a man who goes towards God with the whole of her life, ready, looking. Now, where the hell is she hiding now? Okay. It's only in our doing that we can grasp you. Only with our hands we can illuminate you. The mind is but a visitor. It sinks us out of our world. Each mind fabricates itself. We sense its limits, for we have made them. And just when we would free them, you come and make of yourself an offering. I don't want to think a place for you. So speak to me from everywhere. Your gospel can be comprehended without looking for its source. When I go to you, it is with my whole life. That's what you can do it. Because your very life, driving, picking up the kids, taking them to extra classes, to sport, your very life is this. But if you start looking for her, she's there after you drop the kids, sitting in the passenger seat saying, "Oh, sweetie." She's there. And the stupid driver in front of you, she's there. So the very meat of our lives is the scripture we're invited to read. You know, when you come to something like this, and I'll stop now, you come to something like this, you think, again, the same thing this morning. Is this kosher? Is this real? Is this real? It's fun. Should spirituality be fun? Is this real? And I was, about a few months later, I was reading this guy who I think is one of the great spiritual teachers of our time, Eckhart Tolle. And I found, and I've got a copy of it, I found a little extract from his book, The New Earth. And it is just unbelievable. It's a bit long, I'm going to read it to you, then we'll stop. It was unbelievable finding this after this. So it's almost like the big she wanted me to go through the 10 days of pain. I had to do that for her to wake me up. To understand beauty, to understand being plunged into the now, to hear the voice, to understand this. So I just want to close with this reading, because it's a little bit long, a bit heavy, from Eckhart Tolle. Just this, because it describes us. It tells us who we are today in modern language. In past ages, you would probably have been called contemplatives. In past ages, you would probably have been called contemplatives. There's no place for you now, it seems, in our contemporary civilization. On the arising earth, however, your role as a contemplative, as this, is just as vital as that of the creators, the doers, and the reformers. Your function is to anchor the frequency of the new consciousness on this planet. What's your mission? You here at Sacred Hearts, parents, men and women of today, what's your mission? What's your purpose? Your function, your mission is to anchor the frequency of the new consciousness on this planet. I call you frequency holders. That's our new name. Holding this presence, holding this rhythm that's everywhere for humanity and for the world. I call you frequency holders. You are here to generate consciousness through the activities of daily life, through your interactions with others, as well as through just being. Just be. You're here to do this. In this way, you endow the seemingly insignificant with profound meaning. Your task is to bring spacious stillness into this world by being absolutely present to what you do. Now there's the description of a contemplative today. Your task is to bring spacious stillness into this world by being absolutely present to whatever you do. Your consciousness, there is consciousness, and therefore, my word, quality in what you do. There is consciousness, and therefore quality in what you do, even the simplest task. Your purpose is to do everything in a sacred manner. That's the contemplative. Your purpose is to do everything in a sacred manner, as each human being is an integral part of the collective human consciousness. You affect the world much more deeply than is visible on the surface of your lives. That's our mission statement. Going back to beauty plunges us into the now. Thankfulness immediately makes us now. Those words of Meister Eckhart again come to mind. If the only prayer you ever say in your life is thank you, it's enough. If the only prayer you say in your life is thank you, basta.